Hey guys, welcome back to Gatsu Gaming. Today we're going to be talking about Havoc Demon Hunter. I haven't had much experience with Havoc Demon Hunter online, aside from spamming I-Beam, because that's apparently the best thing you can do. But it's slightly different for Battle for Azeroth, so let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at the talents. So, the first talent that I chose here was Blind Fury. Please keep in mind the build you're looking at is just random talents that I picked while I was running some dungeons to test them out, get a general feel for them. Blind Fury is I-Beam generates 40 Fury every second, and its duration is increased by 50%. This is incredibly strong whenever you either don't have much gear or you know you're going to be able to get full use out of your I-Beam. Very, very strong talent indeed. Next we have Demonic Appetite. Chaos Strike is a chance to spawn lesser soul fragments, and consuming any soul fragment grants 30 Fury. This is great if you're having issues with resources, or if you just know that you're going to have enough going on that you're going to need everything that this brings to the table. This is a very, very good for generation talent for sure. Now, last in this row here, we have Fellblade. This is an instant, 13-second CD, of course. It's a 15-yard range charge, and it deals fire damage whenever it connects. Demon's Bite also has a chance to reset the cooldown of Fellblade. This will generate you 40 Fury. This was actually the one I used most in dungeons and had the most fun with. It was very, very exciting to kind of, hop around with Fellblade, and it's just overall a pretty solid talent. I really don't think you can do too terribly picking any of the talents in this row here, but from what I understand, Demonic Appetite seems to favor, well, there's quite a few Demon Hunters that tend to favor this one, and it's not surprising to see why. It does a ton for you, especially on trash, boss fights, anything where you're going to need continual, fury, a steady stream of fury. This will definitely do that for you. Whereas the other two give you more burst, which is, typically very, very big trash pools, or just whenever you're running around questing. The level 100 row here, we have Insatiable Hunger. Demon's Bite generates up to 10 additional Fury. This here is also great. This is a great simple passive talent that just ups your generation passively while still letting you use Demon's Bite. The option that takes away Demon's Bite, of course, is Demon's Blades. This will replace Demon's Bite, and it'll make it that your auto attacks have a 60% chance to deal additional shadow damage and generate Fury. Typically, this was the go-to talent back in Legion. It may or may not still be the go-to once we reach appropriate haste levels. We'll have to wait to see what really happens here after initial tuning and initial gearing. And then Immolation Aura, which I was very confused by this at first. I was like, wait, am I in the wrong spec here? It was really weird to see. It was a shock. But Immolation Aura, we have a 25-second CD, instant, of course. Engulfs yourself in flames, instantly causing fire damage to all enemies within 8 yards, and then you radiate fire damage every second, lasting for 10 seconds. This also generates 80 Fury over 10 seconds. So this entire row is just Fury generation, and Immolation Aura is also AoE damage. Immolation Aura is a very, very unexpected talent for me, because I honestly thought we wouldn't see this anywhere but in Vengeance. But they shifted it here as a talent into Havoc. So, all in all, very satisfied with this row for sure. Immolation Ore is actually one of the most fun to play, just because you get that extra AoE damage, which Demon Hunter does very well anyway. And it's just very satisfying to have that pulsing AoE when you need it, especially on big trash pools. So the 102 row here, this is sort of an AoE row. Sort of. So we have Trail of Ruin. The final slash of Blade Dance inflicts an additional 652 chaos damage over 4 seconds. This is, of course, this will actually go on to every single target. It's not just, the first one, because it is an AoE. This is great for, of course, big trash packs. You're going to get a bunch of passive damage, and of course makes you then prioritize Blade Dance, which of course will influence your next couple of talent picks as well. Then we have Fell Mastery. This just gives you 100% extra damage on Fell Rush. That is super, super simple. Very, very simple talent, and it works great. Of course, you're probably going to pair this with Momentum, because why wouldn't you? Fell Barrage is the last choice here. And by last, I certainly do not mean least. It's 1 minute CD, it's a channel, unleashes a torrent of fell energy over 3 seconds, inflicting 9,000 chaos damage to all enemies within 8 yards. This talent is absolutely crazy. I'm not sure if this is going to stay at the power level that it's currently at, but this thing is nutty good right now. Tons and tons of damage while you're leveling. In the normal dungeons you do is you level up to finish out the zones and collect your Azeroth power. This thing is insanely good. So definitely try this out on PTR if you have the opportunity to. It's very, very powerful right now, and it's totally worth using. Any of these talents are good. I mean, I cannot find a really terrible thing here about these, except maybe I don't want to use Spell Rush all the time because I'm scared I'm going to dash off a cliff. Other than that, this is, again, very good talent row. So the 104 row, this here is our sort of survivability row. We have Soul Rending, which has been nerfed significantly. We now get a passive 10% leech, and you get an additional 10% leech while meta is active. So gone are the days of being 100% unable to be killed while you're in meta, and now is a much more reasonable and consistent amount of leech instead. Soul Rending is the choice that I go to typically just because I'm out leveling, so leech is great. Desperate Instincts. This here is passive. Blur now reduces damage taken by additional 15%, and additionally, you automatically trigger Blur when you fall below 35% health. This effect can only occur when Blur is not on cooldown. This is great if you're one of those people that sometimes doesn't watch your life bar as much as you probably should when you're running a Mythic Plus. So this here can definitely save you from dying. Blur in general is actually a very, very strong defensive cooldown. So worst case scenario, this just makes Blur even stronger. Then we have Netherwalk, which is a 2-minute cooldown, makes you completely immune, and increases your movement speed. But of course you can't attack while you have this on, and it lasts for 5 seconds. If you have a nasty mechanic you need to make sure you survive, Netherwalk is the way to go. So 106, this is our first, we'll say, rotation influencing row. So we have Cycle of Hatred. When Chaos Strike refunds Fury, it also reduces the cooldown of Metamorphosis by 3 seconds. So very similar to how the Legendary Shoulders work. Whenever your Chaos Strike refunds Fury, which happens a lot more often than it probably should, you get reduced meta cooldown, and that's just a great all-around talent. You can't go wrong with it. First Blood is the choice if you want to go ahead and use Blade Flurry, or Blade Dance rather, as one of your high priority abilities. It reduces the Fury cost of Blade Dance by 20 and increases its damage by 2277 against the first target struck. So it makes it hit significantly harder on the first target. So single target fights, this is going to be really strong for sure. And then of course pairs really well with Trail of Ruin, which I'm not sure if this does anything at all to Trail of Ruin. I don't think it does because it's just the first hit. But just the first target struck. So it might actually improve the damage on Trail of Ruin in single target, but I'm not too sure. Definitely play around with that on PTR. Let me know if you find out if it does or not. I just haven't had the opportunity to look. But could be a very fun combination for sure. And the last one here, we actually have a new ability called Dark Slash. It's 20-second cooldown, instant, no cost. Slash an enemy for 999 physical damage, and increases the damage of your Chaos Strike deals to them by 40% for 8 seconds. So Dark Slash essentially gives you an extra damage window, so you can actually be a little more focused on what you're doing damage-wise. Gives you that burst window, similar to how an Arms Warrior would use Colossus Smash. You have Dark Slash, which will do similar and give you increased damage. So definitely great if you have a high priority ad that needs to die, or if you just really want to focus everything in for 8 seconds if you then have to, get away shortly after. Gives you a lot of options, and this entire row, again, is super well designed, and I absolutely love how it works out. And again, this row significantly influences your rotation. The level 108 row here, this is a very unique row, to say the least. So we have Unleashed Power, removes the Fury cost of Chaos Nova, and reduces its cooldown by 33%. So this gives you a much more reliable AoE stun. With the talent, it takes that down to a 40-second CD, 2-second stun, which is great. At one point, it was actually a disorient, and then they removed that disorient and put it back to a stun. Now, this class not having an AoE stun would be really awkward, because that's one of the many reasons they were brought to Mythic Plus in general, was that stun and that incredibly high burst they can do while that target is still stunned. So I'm glad to see that they reverted that change. Master of the Glaive, if you just need some snares, or you're really into throwing glaives around, throw Glaive. It has 2 charges then, and snares all enemies hit by 50% per 6 seconds. Super useful whenever you need to kite, and in general is a pretty solid choice here for just general CC and running around. And lastly, we have Fell Eruption. This is a single target stun you can get additionally. It does cost you 10 Fury and has a 30-second cooldown. It will do some chaos damage and stun them for 4 seconds. So if you need that extra stun in your group, that extra single target stun, this is definitely the way to go. In the last row here, this is our sort of big damage window type thing. This is our largest DPS increase row, according to some Demon Hunters that I've talked to here on beta. So first we have Demonic. I-Beam causes you to enter Demon form for 8 seconds after it finishes dealing damage, which is why, of course, it would be paired with Blind Fury, so that you get that extra damage and resource generation so you can cleave really hard right afterwards. Demonic is, I believe right now on live, if you have 4-piece T21, I believe you're playing Demonic anyway, but it's not in this row, it's in a different row entirely. Talents got shifted around a ton. But I love I-beaming into a meta, and then getting to meta right afterwards because of Cycle of Hatred. It's pretty fun. So here we have Momentum. It is back. It is still very strong. Fell Rush increases your damage done by 15% per 6 seconds. Vengeful Retreat's cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds, and it generates 80 Fury over 10 seconds if it damages at least one enemy. Now, for those of you that do enjoy Momentum, that playstyle is still here. I know that if you guys have met Leah on the channel, which you should have, there's a couple videos I've done with her recently, she absolutely despises Momentum. I mean, she loved playing Momentum because it was good damage, but she hated playing Momentum because of the constant hopping around in that. And a lot of Mythic Plus dungeons will not allow you to run Momentum because there's mechanics you have to avoid, or you have super tight, constraints because you're skipping some trash. So Momentum, when you can use it effectively, is definitely one of the stronger picks in the talent tree for sure, but it does have its limitations, and it does have some conditions that have to be met for it to be the top pick. Now, lastly, we have the one that I typically run on live, and actually one of the ones I most enjoy here, just because it is good, simple, and it just works. So we have Nemesis, increases damage you inflict against the target by 25% for 1 minute. When the target is slain, you'll inflict 25% additional damage against all creature types, matching the original target type for the remaining duration. Nemesis is incredibly good whenever you're going and you're fighting a boss, because, hey, 25% extra damage for a full minute? Poof, sign me up. That's the full duration of your Time Warp, or your Lust, or your Hero, whatever you want to call it. And it's, yeah, and you still have another 20 seconds on top of that, so Nemesis, super, super strong. When in doubt, go Nemesis. You really can't go wrong. So those are the talents here for Havoc. So let's go ahead and take a look at the spellbook. There are a couple spells that are notably gone, but for the most part, Havoc retains pretty much everything it had when it was introduced in Legion. So the first thing you'll notice here is we have Blade Dance. It is 35 Fury, and it actually is affected by Haste Now for the cooldown. So it strikes all enemies for about 800 physical damage and increases your chance to dodge by 100% for 1 second, essentially the duration of the ability. Blade Dance is really great whenever you need to, avoid a mechanic, whenever you have some mob coming after you. It just does a great job at saving your life. And one of the other really cool things you can do with this, abilities like the spear on, the first boss in Eye of Ashara. I always forget his name when I go to talk about him. But you can use Blade Dance to dodge that and save anybody from getting hit by the spear. It's pretty cool. So we still have Blur, 1 minute CD, increases your dodge chance by 50%, and it reduces all damage you take by 35% per 10 seconds. Super strong, defensive. Definitely use it if you ever find yourself in the unfortunate situation of, oh no, I'm tanking for the tank because the tank's dead or disoriented. Blur will save your life. Blur is incredible. Chaos Nova is our AoE stun. Baseline of, I believe it is a 60-second cooldown. With the talent that I chose, it drops it to 40. You unleash an eruption of Fell Energy, dealing some chaos damage and stunning all enemies for 2 seconds. Each enemy stunned by Chaos Nova has a 30% chance to generate a lesser soul fragment, so Chaos Nova is not only a reliable stun, it is also potentially generation when you can use it correctly. So we have Chaos Strike. It deals 1800 Chaos damage at the cost of 40 Fury. Chaos Strike has a 40% chance to refund 20 Fury. Of course, whenever it uses that 40% chance to get you that Fury back, it will also reduce the CD of your meta if you're talented the way that I was there with Cycle of Hatred. We have Consume Magic. This is a new ability here. Consume one beneficial magic effect from the target, removing it and granting you 20 Fury. This is shared between both Vengeance and Havoc Demon Hunter. Purges are incredibly strong in BFA, and you're going to need them a lot. So definitely have this on a nice, easy-to-reach keybind, and make sure that you're using this as often as you can to help out your group. So here we have Darkness. This is the 3-minute AoE cooldown. Summons darkness around you in an 8-yard radius, granting friendly targets 20% chance to avoid all damage from an attack. Anytime you've got crazy AoE going out, or just a lot of healing required from your tank, from your healer, because either your tank's taking a ton of damage or the boss is being a jerk and doing a crazy big ability, Darkness is your friend. This can save wipes. Always, always, always make sure you have this somewhere you can hit it quick. Demon's Bite, this is your standard generator, unless you talent into Demon Blades. Just a quick attack for about 800 physical damage, and it generates 20 to 40 Fury. Disrupt is our Interrupt. It is a 15-second cooldown, 10-yard range. Interrupts the enemy's spell casting and locks them from that school for 3 seconds. This generates 30 Fury on a successful Interrupt. So if you are in an Interrupt rotation, ideally you would want to be first, and then making sure that you get your Interrupt in as often as possible after that, just because it is a damage increase for you to be interrupting and purging. So we have I-Beam, 30 Fury, channeled, 20-second cooldown, does have a 20-yard range. Blasts all enemies in front of you, dealing guaranteed crits for a total of, it says 42-30 chaos damage over 2.5 seconds. Your primary target takes 100% increased damage. I-Beam is that very iconic ability that Demon Hunters have, and it still looks just as amazing in BFA. Still super, super useful whenever you are running dungeons, and you're going to get a huge workout out of this ability. Fell Barrage is a talent, so we can hop over that. Down to Fell Rush, you rush forward, incinerating anything in your path for 433 chaos damage, maximum of 2 charges, 10-second recharge. Your general movement ability, if you're playing Momentum, you're going to use this on cooldown almost, to make sure you have your buff up. Imprison, this is our 20-yard range, 45-second CD Incapacitate. It works on demons, beasts, or humanoids. It's a 1-minute Incapacitate. Damage will cancel it. This is actually great for skipping mobs. If you have one particular mob you need to get away from, you can use this to CC them, like the first mob in Court of Stars. You can imprison them and walk right past them. You can even walk right through them. As long as you don't hit them, they don't even know you're there. It's crazy. So we have Metamorphosis. This is our big DPS cooldown. You leap in the air and land with Explosive Force, dealing 912 chaos damage to enemies within 8 yards and stunning them for 3 seconds. Players are dazed for 3 seconds instead. Upon landing, you're turned into a Hellish Demon for 30 seconds. Greatly empowering your Chaos Strike and Blade Dance abilities, you gain 30% Leech and 25% Haste. So if you're keeping score there with the talents to improve your Leech, that does bring you up to 50% Leech, which is still very, very powerful when timed correctly. So with Meta and Cycle of Hatred, you can have this up pretty often in Mythic Plus, and is definitely a very, very pivotal part of your overall damage. So make sure you don't forget to use this on Trash. There's people that won't use their big CDs on Trash, and all they're doing is hurting the group by not doing that. Spectral Sight allows you to see enemies and treasures through physical barriers, as well as enemies that are stealth or invisible. There are plenty of stealth mobs in quite a few dungeons. Spectral Sight will help you find them early so you can potentially throw glaive at them, mark them, charge into them, etc. Be sure you have this keybound somewhere, or at least somewhere you can click it pretty easy. It's actually incredibly useful in Atal Dazar because of the sneaky rogue mobs that are up on the right-hand side heading towards the Goliath boss. Throw Glaive, just a quick physical shot. It'll ricochet up to 3 enemies total. Typically not used in single target at all because it's kind of a waste of a GCD. But if you have nothing else to do and you have to run away, it's a great idea. Havoc Demon Hunter's got Torment. We have Taunt again. That's right, for anyone who's played a Demon Hunter all expansion, Havoc finally has a Taunt. Isn't it nice to see them on par with other tanks? Drink it in, man. Drink it in. Vengeful Retreat removes all snares and you vault away. Nearby enemies take physical damage and have their movement speed reduced by 70% for 3 seconds. Super useful for getting away from things when you have accidentally pulled too many elites. I've definitely never done that. You know, or whenever you're playing Momentum, this is your go-to to, you know, get out of the area and then charge back in. Super useful, you're going to use it a lot. I typically just use it to hop around. Chaos Brand, your Chaos damage brands the target, increasing magic damage taken by 5%. Anytime you deal Chaos damage to anything, which is pretty much all of your abilities, you're going to debuff the target to take 5% extra magic damage, so that your Chaos damage hits them harder, your Warlock in the party will hit them harder, your Mage, your Resto Druid, whatever. Super useful as a tank. This is incredibly great. Purely because it buffs your group and it's an extra debuff out there, and it just overall increases everyone's damage. So a Demon Hunter is a pretty integral part of any raid for sure at this point, purely because of Chaos Brand. We have Demonic Wards. You just take 10% reduced magic damage all the time. Thanks, sweet tattoos. Wish I had tattoos that did something. Double Jump. Of course, we can just jump twice in the air. Everybody loves it. Mastery increases your Chaos damage and your movement speed. I believe this is exactly the same as it was in Legion. Yeah, you should definitely stack this quite a bit. It's really good. And Shattered Souls. Killing an enemy sometimes creates a soul fragment that is consumed when you approach it, healing you for 20% of maximum health. If the soul fragment came from a demon, you will deal 20% increased damage for 15 seconds. So any of the dungeons where there are demons, there are a couple. They're not as prevalent in this expansion, of course, because we're not really dealing with demons too much right now. It's just a little bit of extra damage, and it's really fun to have. So that's going to do it for Demon Hunter as far as talents and the spellbook are concerned. Just running through some dungeons with this over the past couple of days, I've noticed that it performs remarkably well for my Demon Hunter not being all that well geared. I'm 220 item level, which is roughly... I think on live this character's maybe 920, 930, somewhere around there. Basically, I got it up, geared enough, just enough to do the Mage Tower and stopped. I had an Arcana Crystal, which helped. But, you know, my gear was nothing super remarkable. I have a ring that does nothing right now because Netherlight Crucible isn't in effect anymore. I have the shoulders to get extra fury off of the cooldown of meta. But overall, I did pretty comparable damage to everyone else in my group. I didn't feel as though I did anything, you know, too crazy or, you know, anything off the wall for the class itself. I think they're going to sit really well in Mythic Plus, mainly just because there isn't a whole lot going on in Mythic Plus right now in the current dungeons we've been able to run, where they're not going to be, you know, there's nowhere where they're going to be out of place. They just fit in the group so well. So you should definitely see Demon Hunters in your groups. You can definitely main a Demon Hunter and not feel bad about it for sure. They're still good. They may actually be one of the best melee. But don't tell anyone I told you that. Anyway, I will catch you next time. If you enjoyed the video, throw me a like. If you didn't like it, dislike it. Toss me a sub if you haven't already. Help me reach that 1,000 so I can get... up to monetization there and make this a part-time job instead of just a hobby. And I will catch you next time where we're going to be talking about I'm not sure yet because I have too much to do. Catch you later, guys, and thanks for watching Gatsu Gaming.